So, today we're discussing proactivity. This is a very important habit to have into your life. I'm going to explain it and then you apply it to areas of your life. So, first of all, you're probably asking, well, what does he mean by proactivity? And proactivity, simply defined, there are three key words, but simply defined, proactivity is taking the initiative and assuming responsibility while realizing that you have the freedom to choose. So, three key words: initiative, freedom to choose, and responsibility. These three things are what makes up proactivity. So, a proactive person often realizes that, hey, everything I do is a choice. If someone offends me and I'm upset about that, you made an active decision to be upset about that. So, a proactive approach is realizing that you have the freedom to choose whatever you want and that you should choose wisely in all cases. So, and I'll quote someone. Someone said, between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. So throughout your daily life, think about it. When you wake up, ask yourself the question, why? Why are you upset today? Why are you angry? All these negative emotions. What made you angry? What made you upset? What made you maybe envious? All of that. And ask yourself, well, didn't you choose it most of the time? Someone did something to you and you'd say, that's why I'm upset. Someone offended you, that's why you're angry. Maybe like you saw something that someone has and it made you envious. But you need to realize, you can't say, oh, because of that, this happened and I reacted this way. No. Just remember that you always made that active decision to act a certain way. And you can't escape that and blame outside factors for something that you made a choice in. Because doing that makes you a powerless victim. And you don't want to be that in any circumstance. So, and all those things I just said, letting things influence you. These are traits of a reactive person. And this is exactly what we try to avoid in our day-to-day life. Reactive people often let their environment, people, influence their behaviors. They'll say, oh, I wouldn't want to train because it's cold. It's slightly cold. Or they'll always look for an excuse or the other, I would have gone to train, but maybe you said you wanted to train at 5 p.m., but now it's 6 p.m. You could have still got a workout in, but you're like, oh, it's past my time. And I had to do something maybe at 5 p.m. You had to run an errand, and now it's 6. So now you're like, well, that's the reason I didn't train, which is obviously just bullshit. So, in general, reactive people stunt their own growth and development and make themselves essentially powerless. And we don't want to be powerless in any circumstance. Never leave yourself powerless, because then you don't assume responsibility and you don't think that you are able to change that circumstance or thing. So we can't be that. And we're going to see the differences between a proactive and reactive person right now. So when it comes to circle of influence and circle of concern, we'll start with the proactive person. Let me draw this again a bit better. So we'll start with the proactive person. Circle of influence, circle of concern. So this is how it looks for a proactive person. They concern themselves with what they can change. Now there are going to be certain things that you can change. You know, when you look at your circle of influence, think about things like your health, finances, social skills. These are all things in your control. Health, social skills, your relationship, whatever, you're married, whatever. Who you be with, that's also your choice. Your skills, which you've developed throughout the years, you can add more skills as you grow older, and practice more things. So this is a very brief example, but these are things in your control. And this is what proactive people focus on. So they understand that there'll be some things that you're probably worried about that you can't control. For instance, you're probably worried about your country, who's in charge and shit. But you're not in control of that. You can't go to the president and say, hey, I want you to do this and this. That man doesn't care about what you think and stuff. So you always have to focus on what you can change about yourself, and don't try and change other people or influence their behaviors, because ultimately that results in nothing. You won't be able to do that. And so that's how a proactive person takes their approach, considering themselves with what they can change. Now, for a reactive person, their circle of concern is far smaller, and they're usually focused on, their circle of concern is what they usually focus on more than their influence. So, as you can see, it's smaller. And they're thinking about external factors which they have no control over. Politics, maybe your boss's behavior, you're not going to change that. Stuff like that. Your environment that you're living in, you could change that. But let me think of a better example. Maybe your parents and stuff, just a bunch of stuff that you can't change, literally. And they focus on all these problems that they can't change, which ultimately leads to nothing. Whether you think about things that you have control over or no control over, you generally can't change them, and there's no point stressing or worrying about them for a large portion of time when you could do something better with your time or fix yourself. And then that leads me to also talking about problems and how to solve them. So, okay, simply speaking, problems are grouped into 3 categories. The ones that you have direct control, indirect control, and no control. So, problems that you have direct control over, the way to fix these type of problems is to change habits and behaviors. Let's say, for example, think about, you're fat. 350 pounds of pure fat. This could be you right now. Maybe it is, but that's fine at the moment. And you realize that you have direct control to bring yourself to weighing maybe about 180 pounds, and you'd be fit. You have direct influence over this and control over this, and all you need to do is change certain habits to achieve this. And other things too, like school and etc. You have direct control over all of those things. So the simplest way to get past all of that is to change your habits. All problems fall into these three categories. So next is indirect control. And simply speaking, indirect control, these are problems involving other people's behaviors. And the only thing you could do here is change your methods of influence. So someone else's behaviors, for example, that affects you. Maybe, you're in a friend group and stuff, or something, for example, and you don't enjoy the way they're treating you and such. You can't exactly do much about that, but tell them or inform the person or such, or even if it's your spouse or whatever, you simply just tell them, hey, discuss it down, sit them down and talk to them, which may or may not bring change. So that's exactly how you deal with that. The only thing you could do is influence them. And then you look at problems that you have no control over. And the only thing you could do is change perspective or the way you see things. There are certain things that you have no control over. For instance, maybe you apply to 100 jobs and then most of them rejected you and some are still in like the process. So 100 job applications, blah blah, and like 70 are like, nah, we're good, don't worry, and they're like, nah, we're good. And then some of you stress yourselves over that, like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. You might have a great resume and stuff. Like, for instance, maybe the job market isn't that good. Maybe they genuinely don't need someone, or maybe you might be an international student and the law says, that they consider national students first and such. So you can't exactly, you could persuade somewhat, but ultimately the choice is up to them. Or just something else in general. Think about something else. This is an example off the top of my head. But you look at this and you say, well, oh shit, it's, and you stress about it and such. But you need to change your perspective by saying, okay, look, or a better example, let me change this. Sales. Let's use sales as an example here. You do 100 calls, but the business owners are like, nah, don't worry, we're good. We don't need this at the moment, or we already got people doing this for us and such. But there's really nothing you can do about them. You inform them of your services and such. And what you do is need to change your perspective and say, okay, I'll increase the workload to 200. So eventually I know at least one person says yes and such. And then you build up on that. It's like a snowball effect. So real quick, these are how you deal with your problems. You group them into one of these two. You either change your habits, change your methods of influence, or you change your perspective in dealing with problems. Alright, so that's about it for that. And the last thing I'd want to talk about. Alright, let me see. Okay, found it. This is the last thing I'll speak about, and it's essentially the three central values of life. Shit. The three central values of life. 1, the experiential. Now this is just basically, what happens to us. So, stuff you've been through, your life experience and such. 2, the creative. Now this is what we bring into existence, and such. And then the third one, the attitude, our response to difficult situation. Now, experiential, you could have gone through something, maybe it's you had a sales call, 100 people said no, you called 100 times, they either didn't answer or they said no. You experienced that. The creative, what we bring to life, it simply just means what you think, your perspective on stuff. How do you let this affect you? What do you think in your head? You might be thinking, oh shit, I got 0 clients. And you're like, shit. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm a failure, etc. Or you could think, okay, I started, it's my first day. It'll be better. Or you could put, maybe it's your first post on YouTube, 100 views, whatever. It's not going to get, your first post won't get 1 million. But you can say, I'll keep posting. I'm putting in the work. You need to shift what you think or what you bring to your head. Then your attitudinal is your response to it. Now that you've put this perspective in your head, you're like, okay, I understand that my first post isn't going to get me rich or anything. And I'm going to keep posting. I'll keep going, I'll keep pushing until I reach that goal that I wanted. So these are the 3 central values of life and how, things break down in our head, which we don't understand. So essentially, that's a very good summary of proactivity and, how we need to change our habits and solve our problems. A very brief summary, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.